So, I was not planning on making this video, but I was struck with the realization by somebody on my live stream that tomorrow is July 4th, meaning that it's been a year since Stranger Things Season 3. I feel like my thoughts have changed drastically since I last sort of made a video about Season 3, and I kind of wanted to share that today. So it's currently Hamilton Day, it's nighttime, and I'm using my new ring light that I got for graduation, so now I can film at night and it doesn't look like it was filmed in the 1800s. That's really great for me. So I guess this is going to be a bit more of a serious video, and like if you follow me on Instagram and you watch a lot of my live streams, you probably heard all of this before, but I do have a lot of opinions about Stranger Things Season 3 and how it is effectively the downfall of Stranger Things as we know it, and those were definitely not my thoughts when I first saw the season. I have a video that I made with Chloe that were like literally our initial reactions right after we watched the season. That was the first video that Chloe was in. I'll link it down below, and I've made a couple smaller videos about Stranger Things since then, but nothing really discussing my thoughts like that video. So yeah, I'm keeping my voice down because my mom is currently asleep in the room next door. So if I'm not as screamy as usual, that's why. So my opinions on Stranger Things have really changed drastically in the last year, which looking back on now is incredibly interesting and weird and not what like a me of 2 years ago would have thought I'd be in the place I'm at. So let's go back real quick. So Stranger Things Season 1 is effectively a perfect season of television. Like, okay, I went to film school, I'm now a film graduate, creative writing for entertainment. Structurally, Stranger Things Season 1 is perfect. Like, it hits every single mark that, like, an effective short story mini-series type thing needs to hit. It's just, everything about it is basically perfect. I'm also a big fan of Season 2. I think Season 2 was really effective. Stranger Things is a modern example of jumping the shark and stop while you're ahead, because, you know, it was in the Stranger Things fandom. I would still consider myself a member of the Stranger Things fandom, but I think that Season 3 overall kind of caused me to take off my rose-colored glasses and sort of view both the show, the production, and the fandom in a way that I hadn't viewed it before. It's not a secret that Stranger Things 3 is not as well received as its previous 2 seasons, both within the fandom and within just like the average moviegoer. So Stranger Things up until this point, and still continuously, has fragments of a very succinct mold. It's a very simple concept. Stranger Things overall is, you know, it's a love letter to the 80s. It's paying homage to all these famous 80s movies and tropes and whatever. And overall, the formula is very, very succinct. So all 3 seasons follow this very simple formula of the character groups that is really easy to follow, both from a storytelling perspective and from an emotional audience perspective. So for example, you have the group of the kids, where in Season 1, you know, it's Mike and Dustin and Lucas and Eleven, and their whole little journey. You also have the teenagers, which is, you know, Nancy and Steve and Jonathan and their whole journey, and then you also have Joyce and Hopper. So it's like from that you have 3 different distinct groups that have 3 different distinct storylines that are all interconnected somehow. They're on their own solo journeys, and then they come together at the end of the season and band together to defeat the grand evil. That is not a new concept. It is used in lots of different movies and shows, and it is done very effectively in this show. This also helps a lot with the demographic, and the demographic is a big point that I'm going to be bringing up in this video of why Stranger Things 3 doesn't work. So Stranger Things 1 was an excellent use of a vague demographic. So Stranger Things is rated TV-14, which is the TV equivalent of PG-13, meaning limited swearing, family friendly, but still on a bit of a darker side. If you're watching Stranger Things 1, anybody who is watching that show can connect with it. What Stranger Things 1 especially did so effectively was the ability to connect as an audience. If you're a 12-year-old kid and you're watching Stranger Things, you're going to connect with Mike and Dustin and Lucas, and, you know, them playing their games and going out and exploring in the woods and wanting to solve all the mysteries. If you're a teenager, 15, 16, and you're watching, you're probably going to relate to Nancy and her relationship struggle, or Jonathan and how he feels like an outcast and how he doesn't fit in with his classmates. If you're an adult and maybe you grew up with the 80s, you can relate to all 3 of these. Maybe you were Mike's age, 1983, maybe you were Nancy's age, or, you know, you're watching it as Joyce's age currently, and you're relating to her struggles as a mother and losing her child, and Hopper's struggles with alcoholism. What Stranger Things 1 just did so effectively as far as an audience is that anybody could watch the show and feel something. That might sound silly, but audience reception from an emotional standpoint is so incredibly important with film and TV, and just that's why representation matters so much, because like subconsciously, especially as young people, we absorb what we see. If we're seeing things that we connect with, then we're going to absorb that, and it's like we're going to find strength in things that we may find weakness in ourselves. So for example, if you're a young kid and you're watching Stranger Things and you're being bullied at school, you might be able to relate to Will or even Mike in season 1 and be able to see like, wow, these awesome characters were able to fight back, and wow, they're so cool, like giving that kid the strength to be able to surpass their own personal struggles. And that's what is so great about media, because it does those things if you choose to see it for more than just entertainment. This continued pretty well in season 2. You still had the groups. You had the adults, the teens, the kids for the most part. There was also a really great integration of Steve with the kids, which I think caused a really great sort of crossover and started to blend them more effectively. The issue with season 3 is the fact that the groups, although still distinct, have the same energy. I use that in a non-fandom context. I mean, Hopper acts the same way that Mike acts. Well, these characters prior had different nuances for their age range, and they're different, they had their comedic elements and such. Everything just became so convoluted in season 3 that you couldn't differentiate that anymore. I fully blame this is gonna sound harsh, but I do blame the downfall of Stranger Things on the fandom as a result of the production team taking into account what they were distributing. Hear me out. So, the Stranger Things fandom is massive, right? The Stranger Things fandom is incredibly vocal, as are most fandoms. Tweeting all the time. They're posting all these edits on Instagram, commenting on the actors' posts. I'd say, like, Stan Twitter specifically for Stranger Things is incredibly vocal, and it consists of, this is a range, I don't want anybody to get offended because I use this term a lot, 12-year-olds. When I say 12-year-olds, I don't mean every single 12-year-old in the Stranger Things fandom. I just mean that there's a specific breed of 12-year-olds in fan culture in general that just give off a very distinct vibe of being 12, and frankly not acting very maturely and composed in a way that makes certain situations more difficult than they need to be. The shipping culture of Stranger Things is very, very vocal on social media. You have these active Malevolent shippers, Byler shippers, Lumax, Mad Wheeler, what is L-Max, all of these ships that it's like people are very, very passionate about, as goes in every fandom. And I just have this, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that because these fans were so very vocal about their relationship preferences and how they're so passionate about the relationships in Stranger Things more so than maybe some other elements of the show, the production team and the writers and the directors sort of looked at this response, took that into account, and thought, oh, this must be what people want. We should have more of a focus on that in season 3. And that's where they went wrong. Stranger Things season 3 fully dropped the cross-demographic narrative and focused solely on the people who were maybe 12 when we were watching season 1 and are now about 15, 16 while watching season 3, hence are closer to the ages of the now main cast, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, 11, etc. While there is obviously an overlaying arc and storyline with all the supernatural normalcy that we see from Stranger Things, a big bulk of Stranger Things 3 focused very heavily on relationship drama. And I don't know about you guys, I don't watch Stranger Things for relationship drama. So for me, Stranger Things 3 became very tiring very fast.
Editing interjection. Basically what I'm trying to say is that season 3 comes off as very young, and I don't know why I wasn't able to vocalize that as clearly as I just did, trying to target the same audience as something like Riverdale, focused on sort of young teenage group, whereas the previous seasons didn't give off that kind of vibe and didn't seem like they were made for that demographic as strongly as season 3 seemed to be.
And that is only one of the issues. Now, I enjoyed Stranger Things 3 very thoroughly when I first watched it. I cried when I was supposed to cry, laughed when I was supposed to laugh. But I think that often in media, your initial reaction doesn't often reflect what you actually feel about it, and you sometimes need to take some time to actually look back and analyze what was good, what was bad about this, how do I actually feel about it, and that Stranger Things 3 is definitely one of those things, because I feel completely differently about Stranger Things 3 now than I did when Stranger Things 3 first came out. It's not good, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's not good, and it's only not good because the previous two few seasons were of such high caliber, and they dropped the bulk of the things that made the season so good so quickly that you just lost all of what was good about Stranger Things in the first place. Stranger Things has lost the ability to connect with their audience past Stan Twitter and the 12-year-olds who make Instagram edits. Stranger Things 3 is a clear example of they were not planning for the show to go on this long, and Netflix was like, hey, we'll give you some more money. You guys skyrocketed our merchandise sales last year, just whip up another season. And it shows. I don't know how much of a backseat the Duffer Brothers took in season 3, but I feel like it was more significant than the seasons prior, because as far as we're concerned, they did have the foundation of season 2, but while they were working on season 1, so they did have an outline for a continuation, whereas season 3 was nowhere in the mix, and you can tell that it was very quickly whipped up due to analyzing what they assumed the fans of the show wanted. But it's like, you're not going to see the adult fans on Twitter tweeting about their favorite character. So I think that by them being like, oh, they liked this funny thing, they liked this relationship, they overpowered the season with those things that they assumed the mass majority, which I'm sure you could say the mass majority did like, that just caused the downfall of the entire season, because they were now targeting one demographic.
Editing me again. Basically, they lost confidence in their own ability to entertain and thought that they had to people please in order to produce a quality product,
instead of what they were doing before, which is how they were appealing to all demographics and all age groups.
I'd like to disclaim that I'm not referring to the actors themselves in these next couple points. The actors have nothing to do with this. I'm talking solely about the writing, so when I'm speaking about the characters being bad, that has nothing to do with the actors' performances. Okay.
Hopper's character, for example, was just an absolute embarrassment to watch, to be honest. The fact that this man, who, as far as we were concerned in these previous seasons, was in love with Joyce and would really do anything for her, and was even, maybe like she was the only person he was really kind to, that imposed borderline abusive behavior onto her, constantly picking fights, yelling at her, just for the sake of comedy, is just disrespectful to the entire character that they had built up in the 2 seasons prior. Hopper, especially the Hopper that we began to know better in season 2, was not the Hopper that was displayed in season 3. Listen, we all predicted Helicopter Dad Hopper. I was there day 1 saying Helicopter Dad Hopper would be hilarious, him being super paranoid about Eleven and Mike. That's not what I meant. There's a difference between, like, funny nods that are realistic to the storyline and turning it into borderline satire. Mike Wheeler is another character that was just absolutely dragged through the mud for no reason. If you are familiar with my channel, you are familiar with the fact that there are few characters I despise more than season 3 Mike Wheeler. And let me just disclose, Mike Wheeler was my favorite character in season 1, my absolute favorite character. And I have a lot of issues, especially with how they built his relationship with Will in season 3. Now, I would also like to disclaim, I do not ship Byler. In fact, I'm very against shipping Byler for many reasons, but the main reason being that Mike Wheeler is as straight as a piece of uncooked spaghetti, and he's frankly horrible. And this happens with a lot of shows, where it's like they go on for a while and the characters start to do things that are, you know, out of character. But there's a way to avoid that, and it's to actually write well. That may come as a shock to you, but there's a way to not make your characters just drastically switch personality types between seasons. The fact that Mike was so fixated on Eleven that he was blowing off his friends, being rude to his friends, etc., etc., when 2 seasons prior he was about to jump off a cliff for Dustin, barely even remembered he was coming home from camp and didn't want to go to his welcome home thing for season 3, it doesn't make any sense. And it is just a clear example of blatant bad writing.
I don't know why I didn't bring this up specifically, but, like, at the end of season 2 as a whole, we had a very strong Mike and Will narrative, where it's like they were, like, best friends. Like, Will was the most important person in Mike's life at some point. Like, at the end of season 2, when they were trying to get Will out of his mind flayer trance, Mike was telling him about the time that we met and how that was, like, the most important decision he ever made to be his best friend, and for him to then turn around in season 3 and just not be able to recognize the trauma he's been through and the fact that it's like he wants to just sort of bring back the old times because he missed out on all of it, and for him to assess his outlook on him and Lucas's relationships and just be like, oh, well, it's not my fault you don't like girls. It's incredibly problematic, it's incredibly toxic, and most importantly, it's just incredibly backwards, according to what we had seen previously with Mike's character and his relationship with Will. And I get it, characters grow, both literally and figuratively, but to frankly just demolish every positive trait a character has and excuse it with, oh, well, they're a teenager, is just bad writing. And we need to stop making excuses.
And you know, something like Joyce, for example, Joyce Byers is a character that was so clearly written for season 1. Like, Joyce Byers was the center of season 1. She was the one who was driving the plot, who was actively looking for Will. If you compare Joyce Byers' role in season 1 versus season 3, like, she was not needed in season 3. Putting her in that plot line with Hopper was just to give her something to do, and it shows. Like, the meme of, oh, season 1, where's my boy? Season 2, what have you done with my boy? Season 3, what's wrong with my magnets? Like, it's funny, right? But it's also like, you jumped the shark and you ruined it. Now, there's some great things in season 3. I thought Robin was an excellent addition to season 3. I think the Scoops Troop in general was the highlight. Dustin and Steve was definitely a really great surprise to come out of last season, something that was definitely more successful than the writers probably anticipated, but that was something that was handled well, that was transferred over once they received the audience reception. The way to interpret, oh, people really like Mike and Eleven, is not to center the entire season around them and cause interpersonal character conflicts regarding the relationships in a show that's supposed to be about monsters and superpowers. That's not what we came here for. It's important to establish characters and human conflicts among the supernatural for it to be an effective audience experience, but you do not need to turn it into a teen rom-com. Were so many things that were bad about it, that were just bad, that just overshadowed the rest of it, and it put me in a spot where I don't care about season 4 the way I would have cared about season 4 had season 3 been as good as 2. I'm just not as invested in the fandom as I was 2 years ago when I bought Stranger Things bedding and all the Funko Pops. And that's just, I think that can be so interesting that it's like so quickly was my view skewed because of how quickly the show just crumbled right before us. I think the show easily could have ended right after season 2 had they ended smack after the snowball and not gone to that shot of the mind flayer still in the upside down. Show could have been over. But the point is, this production team have shown, like many others have, that they frankly care about money more than quality. Season 3 was a very merchandise-oriented season. They made millions off of the toys and the beach supplies and the lunchboxes and the backpacks and the whatever. You can tell it was quantity over quality, and that's sad because there was a point in my life where Stranger Things was my favorite thing in the whole world, and I can't see myself going back to a place where that's true. Season 1 will always have a special place in my heart. It will always probably be my favorite season of television because, like I said, it's perfect. And I think it's really sad that Stranger Things, like many other shows, were just engulfed by the Hollywood dream and turned into something that's not authentic and real anymore, and is just an amalgamation of things that the production team thinks audiences will respond to without actually realizing why people like Stranger Things in the first place. So yeah, I don't know, it's just a bit of a downer of a video. I'm sorry if I made you sad. I wanted to talk about this in like a structured video content. I didn't script this, but I've had these thoughts for a long time, so I'm glad that I finally got to make like a proper video of it. Let me know what you think down below if you agree with. I know a lot of you do according to my live streams and such, but yeah, I'm really curious to see what you thought. Do you think I missed anything, or if there's some other things you want to point out, go for it. I'm still going to watch season 4, obviously, but frankly, my hopes aren't too high, especially considering the fact that the season is set in Russia, allegedly, and they showed us Hopper in the teaser show. That's another thing. Like, I feel like Stranger Things just treats their audience as if they're stupid. Like, am I the only one that it's like, obviously, we all figured out that Hopper wasn't dead at the end of season 3, right? Like, that post-credit scene, the American, whatever, like, we're not dumb, and I feel like they think we're dumb, and they're like, oh, we're gonna hit him with this little teaser trailer, Hopper's alive, like, yeah, we know. Why couldn't we have seen that reveal in the actual show? Why did you have to give us that teaser trailer months before the show was even gonna release? We didn't even have a release date yet, and now we're in a pandemic, and they didn't even finish filming, so we're probably not even gonna get the season until late next year. Like, I'm just kind of tired of Stranger Things treating everyone like they have the same voice as the 12-year-olds who have the loudest voice. I just wish they would have a bit more respect for the rest of us, but at this point, I don't know how much they can do to sort of fix it. I feel like there's really no going back, and that's really sad. So, I don't know, this is an incredibly dramatic video. It's literally just a fucking TV show, but this is my channel where I talk about TV shows and movies all the time, and I care about TV shows and movies more than I care about real life things, so here we are. So yeah, comment, like, and subscribe, press the notification bell because I don't have an uploading schedule. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at edward.spaghedward. Links in the description for ways you can help with Black Lives Matter, as well as my merch and my website and all that stuff. This has been a really great dinner. Thanks for coming over.